Good afternoon, good morning. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Gilda Hilaire, and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager at Salesforce. Today, we have Elliot Hopper and Ivan Razin, who is going to share best practices in secure development for Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So get your questions ready. And just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. We will try to address these questions during the presentation and at the end. We will also send the recording and the webinar link and anything that's mentioned during the presentation in the follow-up email. Now, without further ado, we will get started. I will turn the time over to Ivan, who will answer some of the questions that we received during registration. So, Ivan, take it away.
Maybe I can just start off by saying, of course, we did see some great questions come through that many of you provided in registration. We're definitely going to get to those, but we also, I think we want to start by sharing a few common vulnerabilities that could be exploited by a malicious attacker and how to mitigate them when building landing pages and cloud pages.
All right, let's start this. For my first demo, I'm going to be talking about cookies and actually how to put your data into cookies, how to protect it, what the vulnerabilities are, and basically how we're able to steal different cookies from your website. And so right now you should be seeing my screen, right? Okay, let's say there are several ways to actually create cookies. So, right, let me put this down. Okay, so when you're creating cookies with whatever application you have, you need to pay attention to several parameters in the cookie creation. So here, what I'm showing is actually a Chrome extension that allows me to create cookies on the fly. So if I'm trying to create a new cookie, let's say new cookie, and I have some value 01, there are several options that we have. So first of all, we have the expiration date. So the expiration date, it should not be 1 year or something like that. So you should really think about the expiration date of the cookie, especially if you're storing some sensitive information there. So for this example, I'll just put a year, but this is just for example purposes. Then you have several other options. And what you really need to pay attention to is HTTP only. So HTTP only basically prevents JavaScript from accessing your cookie. So this thing is very important. Then the option secure. Secure basically ensures that the cookie is passed through the HTTPS protocol. Then you have the session. Well, basically it means that the cookie should be deleted after the session is over. So the window is closed, something like that. The other options are not that important for this example, but at least, so if I create this cookie like this, right, let me do this again. All right, so this cookie is created, and this one is already there. So, for example, this cookie is the cookie that is protected. So what are we protecting against? We are protecting against XSS, which translates to cross-site scripting. So cross-site scripting is something that people can do on your web page, and it consists basically of injecting JavaScript onto your web page. So if I take this page, for example, and I say that I want to insert some JavaScript, I can do it directly in the URL by doing something, I don't know, emg equals script console log Hello. So if I will be doing this, Marketing Cloud is smart enough to return an error. So, and basically any intelligent browser will block this kind of operation. Now, how can we make this work? How can we actually simulate the XSS attack? So in this case that I will show, it is possible if we actually encode it. So the most popular and easiest encoding that we have in Marketing Cloud is base64. So we also had a question that can we actually protect something by encoding base64? And the obvious answer is no, because, well, it's encoding. It's different from encryption and hashing. It's basically should only be used to encode something in a different format and then decode it and pass this in the URL or HTTP request, something like that. So it doesn't actually protect your data because the algorithm is well known. You can encode and decode several things, and it's pretty easy. There's this website, base64 encode, and there's also base64 decode if you want to use it. So now let me show you an example here. So first of all, my HTML. So as you can see here, what I'm doing is I'm getting a parameter from the URL, I decode it, and then I display it within an image tag. So image tags are very vulnerable to XSS attacks, and I will show you how. This is pretty easy to simulate. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to look at the code and I will say, all right, so something is inserted here from the parameter, the URL parameter EMG. All right. So what I should be doing to modify this is creating something like that. EMG src, and then some parameter will be passed, then the image will be closed, something like that. So now if I pass a parameter, I will first close the tag, then I will hit space, and then I will insert something like this, right? So basically my goal is to do this. So on error attribute of the image tag, what it will do, it will see that the source is empty, and there it will trigger a JavaScript code, all right? So in order to do this, all I have to do is actually encrypt this part of the code with base64 like this, and pass it as a parameter. So I already have a small demonstration here. Hey, so as you can see, this alert will display all the non-protected cookies. So as you know, they're like, if I have a look at this, so I have some not protected cookie. This one is protected by nothing, basically, not HTTP only, not secure. I can see that I have last login. So this is this one. Then add from BTA. So this one also, you can see that it's secure, but and host only, but it doesn't prevent me from reading the cookies directly from the JavaScript. So potentially, if I send this link in a phishing email, I will be able to access the cookie of the person who accesses the page. And I will be able also, using JavaScript, to use like a fetch function to send it to myself, for example, right? So this is one way to do different things. Then, yeah, a second example would be to encode this kind of code. So this kind of code, what it will do is on error on the image, it will send to this endpoint using post all the cookies that I have in my browser for that page. All right, so let me access, yeah, well, nothing is configured. Wait. This is a pretty useful website just to test your API endpoints, and I'll be doing something like if I'm testing stuff. We create this endpoint. All right, so I can actually send things to this endpoint. I will say, okay, so this is going to be my endpoint. This is going to be page where I sent all the information to. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to encode this part. Let me say basis for encode. Code. All right, so this is my JavaScript. Now let me open the console to see what is happening. Network. All right, so now let me do this. Okay, so what do we have here? Here I can see that I sent all the cookies from the open tab to this endpoint, but this endpoint is just an example. It could be an endpoint of a malicious person. All right, so how to protect against these kind of things? Because of course we will need to encode something, put it in the URL. Sometimes we really need it, and the solution is quite simple actually, and it's documented on just one page of Salesforce Marketing Cloud Salesforce documentation, and those are the security headers. So now let me just show you here an example. So these are well documented, and these will prevent from XSS from being executed on my page. So now if I'm doing this and I refresh the page, let's see if something is happening, and nothing is happening because the XSS attack has been blocked. All right. Well, then you will say me, yeah, but all the cookies that will be stolen are actually cookies that are not protected. But there is also another way to steal your cookies, and there will be no protection whatsoever. I'll be able to basically steal any cookies, secured or not, and I will show you how. So in order to do this, I actually have to create a Chrome extension. A Chrome extension, let's say it's a third-party Chrome extension. You downloaded it from, I don't know, some source, some website, or it got installed automatically, something like that. In this case, I created one myself. It's called Nick Cage Gets Things Done. All right. So, and what it actually does, so let's see here what it actually does. Please work. All right, so it gets a quote from Nicolas Cage. All right, so every time I click on it, it gets different quote, and it seems to work all right. But you don't know what it does behind the scenes. Actually, to know what it does behind the scenes, you can click on your extensions page and have a look what it does here. And what it does is actually stealing all of your cookies and sending it somewhere else. So now, let me see if I got some cookies. I did not. Oh, actually, I think I have to open a new page.
We've lost your video, Ivan, and we can see your screen, but not yourself. So I don't know if you want to turn your camera on.
Yeah, it's wait. Give me a second.
You're back again.
Yeah, you're not seeing my face, I guess. All right, this works. Yeah, I'm actually using my smartphone instead of webcam. Okay, actually, I think I got this email. Nope. Okay, so here it is. So I got an email from Elliot Harper. right? And in this email, I can see that there are all of my different cookies. So this thing does actually get all the different cookies that I have, protected or not. In this case, yeah, well, just believe me. Anyway, as you can see, this is something that can be considered a spam email. But what's amazing is that I actually see Elliot Harper as the sender. I know that it's sent from somewhere else, but I see Elliot Harper. And you know, a Chrome extension, it will get all the cookies. That's the thing. And using this cookie, if you are connected to Facebook, for example, I can easily steal your cookies using that Chrome extension and access your Facebook account without ever entering a login or password. So now let me just show you the code that is behind that. I actually created just a simple PHP page where I get anything that gets as content. I said, okay, this is the recipient. I will send the cookies from the IP. I get all of the content, and I set the from as Elliot Harper, and I create a carbon copy, invisible carbon copy to another email address. So this is how easy it gets when sending phishing emails. All right, you just have to know a couple of PHP lines, and then it is done. All right. So as I said, for the cookies, the one thing to remember is when you're creating the cookies, it's if you want it to be protected, you actually have to put in secure and HTTP only. But if you have a malicious Chrome extension, it will not work. So really pay attention to the Chrome extensions that you're installing. And even if it's a trustworthy Chrome extension, what malicious people would do, they would actually bribe the company to access their code and put scripts like that to be able to steal cookie information from you. So just pay attention to that. So if I compare it to the local storage, for example, if you know what local storage is basically a JavaScript way of storing information. If I go to application, I can have my local storage here where it's nothing there, but it's basically a key and value. It's not as well protected as a cookie. So in JavaScript, you can also very easily access this kind of information. And I have an example here. Well, I will not show it. Basically, it's going to be window.localstorage, and then you will also be able to get a particular line from local storage if you set some parameters here as well. All right. I think, Elliot, you should take over.
Sure. Thanks, Ivan. Yeah, that's for that kind of very insightful demonstration. Before we do take some questions, I am keen to share or ask you to show one common use case, and that's a challenge response test, like using reCAPTCHA to prevent any spam or bots from entering data into form fields on a landing page. So I typically see this where fake registration submissions and contact form entries and even fake comments on posts. Can you share how that you can use a challenge response widget like Google reCAPTCHA to mitigate those type of attacks for form-based landing pages?
Yeah, well, I will not share my reCAPTCHA configuration, but what I can do is basically say, well, tell you how it works. I actually created an article about this that explains how to implement this from A to Z. And well, here it is. You can just follow, and you can see that what you will have to do is basically to go into Google reCAPTCHA website, register your website, and from there you'll be able to obtain two different keys. There will be a public key and a private key. And then you will implement this in your form, and you will basically, every time that you will submit your form, the reCAPTCHA will generate a token for you that will be sent automatically along with all the data in your form. When this data reaches a Marketing Cloud form handler page, for example, if you're using the form handler technique, you should be able to capture whatever is sent in the payload. So the GE reCAPTCHA response basically will store the token of reCAPTCHA, and then you will be able to verify it by placing HTTP post request to Google, and then Google will verify if this particular token was generated from the source you're telling, and it will basically say, all right, so this form was actually protected by reCAPTCHA, and therefore we can proceed with registering the data and proceeding with the rest. So for me, the reCAPTCHA is actually the only thing that's preventing bot attacks. Well, so far so good. So far perfect record. Every time that I implemented reCAPTCHA on the front-end side and the back-end side, it always worked. But it's not the only thing that we can do to protect a cloud page, for example, because you have the security headers. You can also verify on the referrer, even though the referrer can be falsified pretty easily. But just by implementing this technique, you're actually blocking a lot of submission by different bots. What bots will do, well, this actually happened to me one time. I had a form on a WordPress blog that was not protected by anything. So basically, anyone could just put whatever they liked in the form, submitted it, and data would be sent, right? So what the hacker or whoever did, they copied the HTML of the form, put it on another website, and then created a JavaScript that would constantly submit the form with different data. And therefore, since in my form handler, I did not have any server-side validation at all, basically it created thousands upon thousands of fake records in Marketing Cloud. And since Marketing Cloud was synchronized with Salesforce, it also created fake records in Salesforce, and we had to clean all of that, of course. So I would really recommend using reCAPTCHA. There are three different ways. There's the invisible reCAPTCHA, there's the checkbox reCAPTCHA, and there's a reCAPTCHA version that is based on rating. But what I personally prefer is the invisible reCAPTCHA. So on my website, there is one. If you see on the bottom right corner, this is protected by reCAPTCHA. Well, and here you can find all the information that you need and how to implement this as well. So as far as I know, I didn't actually try to use it with Smart Capture, but as far as I know, it's not possible to just implement it in the same way on the Smart Capture. So for me, the usability of Smart Capture is questionable. I always prefer to build my own forms and validate them myself and actually have the full process. So if anything goes wrong, I can quickly address it and be done with it.
Great. Okay, thanks, Ivan. That's awesome. So before we get on to some questions, I just want to share one small example of another common vulnerability that attackers may exploit and that you might want to mitigate. So, and that's the topic of clickjacking. So clickjacking is also known as UI redressing or UI redress attack. And it's a technique where someone will go and take a web page that you have on your site and iframe it into a page on a different website. So let's just say that Northern Trail Outfitters, have some kind of promotion and have created a landing page on Cloud Pages and inviting people to go and register and sign up. What an attacker can do is to go and just buy perhaps a cousin domain, for Northern Trail Outfitters or ntooffers.com, and then start promoting this, maybe by sending phishing emails. And the content, when they visit the page, they actually see your page. which is just entirely iframe through. But they use this technique to go and capture the keystrokes and mouse clicks as you're completing form fields, and then it will post that data to them. So I'd say it's more prevalent in things like maybe if you're logging into PayPal or using a payment gateway perhaps, but also it can be used to obtain PII data. So let's kind of show you that in action. So I'm just going to go and share my screen, I think. And change presenter, here we go. Main screen, share my screen, fantastic, okay. So I'm just, now incidentally, Marketing Cloud already has built-in clickjacking protection, but this is at an account level. So that is, you can't go and, it protects a user from iframing in the exacttarget.com, your Marketing Cloud dashboard interface if this option is enabled, but it won't protect cloud pages. So let's kind of show a vulnerability. I've created a simple form here. Let me just go and actually reload the form. So this is just using AMP and Cloud Pages. I'll just go and complete it. And what it does is it goes and creates a new lead in Sales Cloud. So let me just go and from there, click register, and then providing that lead record is created by a create single Salesforce object function, then I get this message here. So that's great. But as I said before, someone can actually go and take the URL to my landing page and use it on their site or a cousin domain that they purchased. So we go to the simple test here. I'm just going to go and take the URL of my cloud page and paste it in here. And as we can see, it's iframed into this other website. So people might think that they're on NTO and completing this form, of which they are, but they're also these mouse clicks could be captured by this man-in-the-middle attack. So what you can do is very simple to mitigate. Now, I actually think there's documentation on this on Marketing Cloud. So again, here's my cloud page. It's very basic. Actually, this code is available on amscript.guide. But what I'll do is I'll just uncomment these two lines where I'm going to go and use server-side JavaScript to set the response header. That specifically X-frame options or content security policy. So when I just go and enable that, and I go back and I'm going to go and test it again, you can see it's now blocked. Just on a side note, incidentally, you're probably wondering, well, how were you able to go and modify the cloud page? Well, what I've actually done, and if you're not doing this, is a very helpful technique for development. And I just want to stress, kind of, once you've completed development, go and take your code and paste it into your cloud page. But I'm using an HTTP GET AMScript function to go and retrieve a publicly accessible URL. In this case, I'm just using Google Drive. So this is a shareable Google Drive link. And then I'm mapping that with Treatise content, which will force evaluation of any server-side code in my file on my computer that is either SSJS or AMPscript. So again, it's a very time-saving technique because, as you're probably aware, that Marketing Cloud uses a CDN and it can take several minutes for changes to be updated. So you can also use Dropbox. I also now just want to cover one registration question that I saw come in, and that was asked, how can I go and protect credentials, like API credentials? Perhaps it's a third-party API, or maybe actually it's a client ID and client secret from an installed package in Marketing Cloud, because I want to go and use the REST API in my code. And it's a great question, and I mean, the answer is there's not too much you can do. Firstly, just to stress that access to Cloud Pages is available to everyone. If you have a look at all of the default roles from Marketing Cloud Viewer, everyone can see Cloud Pages. And so if I was to store a client ID and client secret in my code, in fact, I'll just go here. If I was to go and paste this into my Cloud Page, of course, anyone can go and see that. The danger is specifically, I'd say, when using credentials, OAuth credentials from an installed package, is that if someone were to obtain that client ID and client secret, and then let's say that they were a contractor and left the company, or maybe a staff member left, even though their Marketing Cloud user account has been disabled, they can still get in and do anything that under the scope of that installed package, from retrieving all the data extensions and the data within them on your account, maybe even retrieving users, even creating new users. So one measure you can do is to go and encrypt these credentials using encrypt symmetric function. I'll explain how that works, and again, some kind of considerations around that. So here's a very simple example. What I've done is I've created a JSON payload of client ID and client secret and an auth URL that I want to go and use to authenticate with Marketing Cloud account. And I'm using the AMScript encrypt symmetric function. Now, there are two ways of using this function. Either you can go and pass the password and the salt and initialization vector, which are the three different arguments required by the function. They can be passed as a string to the function, which in itself doesn't really provide much protection, obviously, because someone can just see that as well. Alternatively, you can go and reference external keys in key management. So if we go into key management and setup, we can see that I've created corresponding password, initialization vector, and salt values as keys. And I've gone and taken those external keys and used them in this request here. So if I was just to go and run this page, let me go and here it is. I'll just go and reload this page. You can see it generates this encrypted string. So I can go and take this string, and I'm just going to go back and go and set my creds as this string here. And I'm just going to, instead of having encrypt symmetric, I'll just change this to decrypt symmetric and save. So if someone was to visit the Cloud Page and as a user, this is all they'd see. And it's not until that kind of code is executed, then will that be decrypted in real time. So if I refresh the page now, we can, there we go, see the decrypted string there. So I mean, it could be argued, and quite rightly so, that even though access to key management is only available to administrators, any slightly savvy developer can go and simply reverse engineer this, go and take this and then use decrypt symmetric to output that kind of on a page in a similar fashion to what I've done here. And you could you're quite right. I mean, that's, I guess, the maximum protection you can provide. But I would say that I want to make two remarks. So firstly, storing sensitive credentials such as OAuth credentials in code repositories or on Cloud Pages is just bad practice. But it's kind of similar to using Heroku. I don't know if any of you worked with Heroku, and you've got this notion of environment variables, and you might have observed that when you go and install a Heroku add-on, all of the authentication parameters such as OAuth parameters, or maybe it's API keys are stored as environment variables. So and I kind of treat this in the same fashion, that think of these keys as effectively environment variables. So where a developer who has access to a Heroku account, of course, can go and if they don't have access to those environment variables, they can go and as long as they know what those variable names are, they can go and retrieve them through code. But really, yeah, that's as far as you can go. Perhaps we can explore using a key management system, but I think you're going to run into the same problems with that, is maintaining the credentials of the key management solution, a key management system. So let's go and have a look at some other questions. Gilda, do you want to go through some other questions?
No problem. Thank you, guys. That was very informative. So let's go and see what questions that we are currently receiving. Can we store credentials in the data extension and call the values from a data extension in our cloud page?
I can answer that.
That's actually it's a great question. So, and if I can start by answering it, and I know Ivan is itching to show this. So yes, of course, but bear in mind that everyone who has access to that business unit can also get the values directly from the data extension. But Ivan's come up with a quite creative technique, which currently works today, of hiding that data extension from others. Do you want to share that, Ivan?
Yes, of course. All right. My presenter. Share my screen. All right. So as you know, like anyone who has access to either the email application or the contact builder will be able to have a look at the data extensions and their content. So you can actually restrict some users from viewing those things by restricting on the user role. But the thing is, there are still going to be a lot of people that could actually see the contents of that extension. We need those. It's the database system of Marketing Cloud. So because of this reason, storing information in a data extension is not a good practice. Then again, storing something like a password, you absolutely can. The thing that you need to do first is actually to hash your password. All right. So by hashing, I mean to transform it into an unreadable string of characters that cannot be decoded. And that's one of the three concepts that you need to understand about encrypting, encoding, etc. Is like there's like three different parts of it. So there's encoding, which is basically base64. It's just transforming your data in order to pass it in the URL or something like that. Then there is encryption. So encryption, it's like encrypt, decrypt, symmetric. So you're transforming your data in something unreadable in order to pass it, and then you will be able to decode it. All right. And then there is hashing. The hashing is also transforming something, your data in something unreadable, but then again, you will not be able to decode it, but you will be able to compare it, because the hash, the same value will always produce the same result. So if I hash my first name, it will produce every time the same result. So now, knowing that, there are several hashing techniques that you can use, and there are several that you should not use. So first of all, let's go into AMP guide, and then let's try decrypt symmetric. So all right, so As I said, for encoding and decoding, it's base 64. Don't use it to store your data. It's just for URLs and stuff like that. Decrypt, encrypt, symmetric. It's as Elliot just showed you. You just have to do it to transfer your data securely or to hide your data. Then you have these two. These methods, MD5 and SHA1, are hashing methods, but those methods are not secure anymore. You should never use them. So basically online for the MD5, you can find a very big dictionary of already pre-hashed words, and you can basically reverse engineer pretty quickly what has been hashed. For SHA, it's kind of the same thing. It's not considered secure since, I don't know, ages. And then you have these two, SHA 256 and SHA 512. These are the ones that you're going to be using. So if you want to store a password in a data extension, this is the function that you're going to be using. Now, consider that you stored something here, but this data extension, even though you have a hash there, maybe you even have a salt, something like this, everybody should be able to, well, whoever has access to that extension will be able to actually see it, and there is no way around it. But I created a way, and this way works now until probably Salesforce Marketing Cloud team updates their application, something like that. And this method consists of breaking the folder association of your data extension. So as you might know, every data extension has a category ID, which is basically the ID of the data folder object. And by destroying that with server-side JavaScript, we'll be able to actually hide the data extension from the user interface. So the data extension will still exist, but it will not have any category ID, and therefore you will not see it anywhere here. So I have an article about how I actually achieved this, but I'm just going to do a small demo because, yeah, here, this is the application that I created. Now, all I have to do is choose a data extension, take the external key, put it there, and say I want to hide it. All right, the folder has been hidden. So now if I go back, okay, the click counter data extension is not there anymore, and you will not be able to find it because I actually broke the category ID. So for now, you can consider that the data extension is broken, although you can still access it through AMP script, through server-side JavaScript. So to make it come back, it's pretty easy. You basically save your customer ID somewhere, and then you get, okay, restore, click on it. And now the data extension is back. So what I'm doing behind the scenes is I'm using the description field. So I will use the description field to store the category ID of the folder itself, so the folder number of the demo folder, right? Then store it there in the description and destroy the category association. And then when I'm going to actually put it back, I will just get whatever I have in the description, the ID that I have in the description, then empty the description, add the category ID using code to the data extension, and then it will be back. So if you really want to know how to use it, just go on my website.
That's good. That's great, Ivan. So look, we've got a few minutes left, and I noticed there are many questions that are flowing through. So let's try and get through as many as we can, I think. Gilda, do you want to go through those?
So the next question is, any suggestion regarding how to test reCAPTCHA 3.0? They are currently struggling with that. And that same individual said they have a landing page, post page kind of configuration, and since the post page URL was available from the HTML code of the landing page, malicious elements were able to send leads directly to the post page bypassing the landing page. Any way to avoid this? Can they encrypt or hide a URL in the landing page HTML?
Of course, yeah. So there are two questions there. Do you want to cover the first one, Ivan, reCAPTCHA 3?
The reCAPTCHA 3, I didn't try to implement it yet. Someone already did. I don't remember who. You'll probably find it on LinkedIn. There is one of the bloggers, Marketing Cloud bloggers, did it, but I haven't tried that yet. It's just because it's based on rating, and it's not applied to the forms that I'm building right now, so I didn't see the use. But for the Cloud Pages URL, I think, Elliot, you will have a good answer for that one.
Well, yes, I mean, they're quite right in that anyone can go and view the source and have a look at the action attribute on that form element to see where that data is posted, and then just go and post directly. This isn't an exclusive problem for Cloud Pages. It's par.form handler or kind of maybe Sales Cloud Web to Lead forms. But Ivan, maybe you can discuss maybe techniques of checking the referrer header, or how can you, obviously you talked about implementing reCAPTCHA, which will mitigate this, right? To prevent someone from posting directly to endpoint. What other techniques can people use?
All right.
So check the referrer header instead a session cookie or something into.
Well, for me, wait, let me try how to protect your Cloud Pages. Yeah. So the ones that I'm using is actually checking on the origin. This one can be changed easily, but at least it protects well from most common bots that are out there, and just by doing the regex matching on the origin header and creating header for access control allow origin, I'm able to block some of them. Then there are the security headers that protect against XSS attacks, X-frame options, and then make the referrer policy more strict. But yeah, as I said before, the best solution that I have is obviously the reCAPTCHA, because the reCAPTCHA is validated first on the front side, on the front end, and then on the back end.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for that. We only have about 6 minutes. Were there any last minute advice that the two of you would like to give to our attendees?
I have a bunch of them, actually. I have a list. Wait. Let me get this out of the way. The best practices. Somebody asked that question about the best practices. So I'll just read them out to you. So for the secure development overall.
And then, Ivan, what we could do is, if you want, I could grab some of these and share this out in the follow-up email, because it looks like you have some really good ones there.
Oh, yeah. I prepared very well for this one. But yeah, so overall, storing in data extension is not very secure unless you really can hide it from other users. Really review your user roles, store passwords and key management when it is possible. When using cookies, don't forget HTTP only and secure options. You should always have a SSL certificate attached to your domain. That is the #1 thing that prevents the man-in-the-middle attacks. And then avoid base64, MD5, and SHA-1 for encryption or hashing your data. For the Cloud Pages, just add reCAPTCHA everywhere you can. It's the best protection I know. You can also validate the field values on the server side and use the security headers against click logging, etc. For the emails, view in browser link is not actually very secure. Avoid putting it on emails that display customers' information, and use the query string to encode URL parameters using the Cloud Pages URL function. And
Ivan,
No, I was just going to say, maybe you and I can connect and we could figure out a way to share this out with the community, because I think these are some really good best practices that everyone should really try to implement.
Yeah, Ivan's list is very comprehensive, and I just want to emphasize he touched on this Cloud Pages URL. So this is when you're linking from an email in Marketing Cloud to a Cloud Page, use the Cloud Pages URL AMP function. If you're using the interface in Content Builder and go and add a link to a landing page, it actually writes the AMP Cloud Pages URL AMP function behind the scenes. And the reason I encourage you to do this is for two reasons. So firstly, it will go and resolve to the actual published page. So if you go and change the name, it doesn't matter. It goes and gets it in real time. Secondly, you can pass query string, or any query string parameters that you pass as arguments in the function will be encrypted, and along with subscriber data such as subscriber ID and subscriber key and job ID and information that relates back to the send, which is extremely helpful. I've got a video. You can head over to mc.chat, which explains this in more detail. But yeah, it's just a great way of securely passing URL parameters across to a cloud page, which is just transparently decrypted.
Perfect for that. Well, we really appreciate the two of you presenting on all the secure development best practices. This was very insightful. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure the attendees also learned a lot. Like I said, Ivan, what I'd love to do is, if I'm able to access that, or if you could send it over to me in any sort of document, I think the community would welcome all this amazing stuff that you've pulled together. So we really appreciate you guys having here. Thank you so very much. And to the attendees, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.